All right, guys. Apparently, the live feed's not going to work here in East Texas. Sometimes you don't have service, believe it or not. Every once in a while, you get to live out a dream that you have, and today, right now, I'm getting to live out mine. I'm getting to interview Mr. Tommy Martin, the legend. We'd like to answer some of your questions from the live feed. Like I say, the service is just going to cause issues, but without further ado, we're going to hop into this and see if we can't pick Mr. Tommy's brain a little bit and figure out what's on his mind. So, Mr. Tommy, first and foremost, from me to you, congratulations on so many years of success.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I've been in this game a long time, and it hasn't gotten old to me. I'm still just as enthusiastic today as I was probably in 1974, actually, when I started fishing BASS tournaments, the Bass Trail. But I'm still very enthused about it, very excited.
That's one of the things that I find so intriguing about you. Nowadays, you'll see a guy come up and he'll be really, really sharp for 2 or 3 years, and then you don't really hear about him anymore. But for the last 3 decades, 40 plus years, you've been at the top of the game no matter the circumstance.
Well, you know, I tell people at seminars all the time that have an aspiration to become a professional bass fisherman, one of the main ingredients you have to have is a burning passion for this sport.
Yes, sir.
And you have to have a strong desire. You have to hate to lose, which I hate to lose. I hate to let the fish beat me. I'm not competing against the other fishermen out there. I'm competing against the fish that live in these lakes. And I hate to let them beat me. So I'm a bad loser.
Right.
So I think that's what you must have if you're going to be a real competitive fisherman. It's just like a football player. If he's not real aggressive and really just gets out there and Bully gets after it, he can never be a great football player, in my opinion.
And I was reading one of your articles the other day. You'll probably remember it when I talked to you about it. It was with Andrew Upshaw. And he said that you made comment to him one time, one of the things you have to do to become a professional fisherman is to be humble.
Well, you do. And you know, all these young guys like Andrew, I started taking Andrew Upshaw fishing when he was about 13 years old. And his dad was my boy's coach, football coach. And he helped my son tremendously in football. It actually got him a scholarship at Sam Houston State University. So I felt like I owed that to Larry Upshaw. And he and I are still very close friends. But I took Andrew and I taught Andrew everything I could teach him. But he got to a point when he got about 19 or 20 years old, he got real cocky and real, you know, just like kids will do. And a lot of these young guys coming up in the tournament, they're that way. But they have to live through that, and they'll come out of it. Most of them come out of it sooner or later. They realize that this is a humbling sport, and there's going to be days that you go out there and zero.
Right.
You know, I've talked to other guys at fish tournaments. They say, "Well, I've never zeroed." I said, "Well, you just hadn't fished long enough." Like I told my son Brian last Saturday at Rayburn, he zeroed, and Rayburn's full of fish and they're biting. He zeroed though.
Yes, sir.
And I said, "It happens to everybody, Brian. Don't worry about it. You just have to live through it, son."
That's part of it. And I think that's really important to let the young kids know is that there are going to be tough times. And to me, the only way you get through those tough times is just fish more.
You bet. You bet.
Now coming into talk about McCain a little bit. With all your success throughout all the years, man, you could have the opportunity to fish with anybody or pick your poison when it comes to rods, but you choose McCain. Can you tell me why a little bit?
Well, I got involved with McCain, with Morgan McCain when he restarted this company, and of course we know he's no longer with us, but Morgan was a rod builder from way back yonder, and he started All-Star years ago. All-Star rods were a very popular rod, and I had a lot of respect for his rod building abilities, and I felt like it was a company I wanted to get with and be a part of, and watch that company grow and just be a part of the growth and stuff. But I wanted to do more than that even. I wanted to have I wanted to have some investment in the company, and what I did was design a series of rods that I'd been working on for a couple of years. You know, I think the thing that sets McCain Rods apart from other rod companies is we're not a bunch of executives that run this company or engineers or anything. We're just ordinary fishermen. Right. We're just bass fishermen. But what we do know is we know what rods need to be like. We know what they need to be. And we've aligned ourselves with some people that are really good rod builders and rod assemblers that put our product together. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a part of the operation, not just an employee where you promote the product,
Right.
but I wanted to help build the product, help design the product, and do other things with the company, and that was a grand opportunity for me.
Well, I know from all my time fishing, your cranking series rods is by far, hands down, the best I've ever used. I've made several posts here or there and talking about how good they are. Show us one and tell me why you think it's the best.
Well, I worked for Seeker Rods right prior to joining McCain Rods, getting with McCain. And Seeker was a totally S-glass rod. It was totally S-glass. And I love the rod because it flexes so much. You know, glass rods they're different than fiberglass. They don't respond as quickly, and they allow bass, when you're pulling a bait through the water, they allow bass to actually come up behind or to the side of that bait and take it. And the rod tip just flexes enough to feed it to the bass. So they get that bait deeper in their mouth on the initial strike. And then you can lean back into them, set the hook, but the soft tip, the glass tip also, when you're playing the fish, it gives you a lot of flexibility. You just lose less fish with the glass rod. But after working with Seeker and seeing what the only bad thing about total fiberglass rods is you can't build them really as light as you can to graphite.
Right.
So Morgan and I, when we were talking about this, came up with the idea to build a rod that was mostly graphite. Oh, this is all graphite all the way from the butt up to about here. About the last 18 inches of this rod is S-glass. It's glass.
Yes.
So that's where you get your flexibility, and that's what feeds the baits too. You're fishing a topwater, a rattle trap, or a lipless crankbait, or square bills, anything with treble hooks. Believe it or not, you're a bass fisherman. You know we lose more fish on treble hooks than we do single hooks. So.
Right.
That's the reason we built the rod the way we did. And this rod only weighs 5 ounces. We reduced the weight where the Seeker rod, the total fiberglass rod, weighed about 8 to 9 ounces. It was quite a bit heavier. But this to me is the ultimate cranking rod. I can't say enough about this rod. I've got total confidence in it. I'm not going to say that I don't lose an occasional fish with this rod, because you do. There's no way to land every one of them you get on the hook. There's
Right.
no way. But I'm telling you, I've reduced the lost fish by a bunch with this rod. I just don't lose fish much with it, and it's a very well balanced rod. It's comfortable to fish with, and just a joy to fish with, really. But I'm totally impressed with it myself still.
Well, I'm pretty impressed. Last week here at Toledo, I had a pretty nice fish, about 5 pounds, take a swipe at a rattle trap, and instead of hooking him in the mouth, I hooked him on top of the head.
Ooh.
When I seen that the hook was on top of the head, I thought for sure this fish is going to go next time he makes his big run. And believe it or not, that rod worked, just like you designed it to. Pull the fish up to the boat and was able to land him. I thought then,
Just take it easy with them.
that's fantastic. I mean, I've been a true believer, but after that, it's even more believable.
Right.
It's outstanding. What about the rest of your series? What you got?
All the rest of the series are, we've got the big jig and worm, which is total graphite. This one's total graphite, but again, we got a 5-ounce rod, and it's made for 3/4 ounce football jigs and bigger worms. Like when I use a 10, 12, 13-inch worm with a 1/2 ounce or maybe a 5/8 ounce slip sinker, a real heavy slip sinker. That's what this rod's designed for. And I spent about 2 years designing these, playing with the handle length, playing with the length of the rod itself. And this rod is 7.3. Most of the rods that I have up here are, like I said, I designed them myself, and I spent about 2 years just playing with everything on this rod till I got it where I was totally satisfied with it. And I say it's perfect for me. I don't know if it's perfect for every other fisherman. You can't build a rod that's perfect for everybody. I mean,
Right.
It's just not going to happen. But these rods they're just phenomenal. The 7-foot worm rod is the one I use about. This is in my hand probably about 60 or 70% of the time when I'm out on the lake fishing and guiding. And it's a worm rod and a light jig rod.
Yes, sir.
But I use 14-pound line with it. 3/16 ounce slip sinker and a 7-inch zoom trick worm's my favorite bait. So I catch a lot of fish on them. But the flipping rod is another rod we can talk about just a second. The flipping rod has a glass tip. And that's what makes it different than most flipping rods on the market. The glass tip, what it does in flipping, when you're using braided line, I don't know, I'm sure you've used graphite rods and braid before, but when you set the hook and hit a fish real hard with a sharp piece of line out, that stiff graphite tip, when you hit them, it rips a big old slot in their mouth about yay long like this.
Absolutely.
And that when you do that, and that fish comes up and jumps several times, it gives it that hook a way to move around in there, and it can come unhung, and you're going to lose that fish. With a softer tip, like the glass tip on this flipping rod, again, about 18 inches of the tip is S-glass, and it's softer. But this rod is still, I mean, it's a brutal rod. It'll handle big fish and heavy cover. When I hit one with it though and drive that hook into the upper part of his mouth, you make one hole. It doesn't cut a slot. That soft tip takes some of that pressure off of it, and it just puts one hole in there where the hook goes in, and very rarely lose a fish with it. To me, it's the ultimate flipping rod. Now, when flipping was invented years ago, D. Thomas came over here from California and fished some tournaments, and that's when flipping actually, came about over here. And D used a totally glass rod for flipping, an 8-foot glass rod. Wow. The thing probably weighed 1.5 pounds. It was real heavy. I'll remember that. But he liked glass, and this guy was a master flipper. He was probably the best there ever was. And I never forgot that. And I've tried graphite rods, and I said, when I design one, I'm going to have a glass tip on it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the best flipping rod on the market today.
You know, I was talking to Randy Sullivan earlier this week in our video, and once we wrapped the video up, we were talking about that exact thing. He was talking about your series of rod and how it's changed his fishing because it has the glass tip.
Right.
Usually he would use fluorocarbon or a softer rod on his jigs, but now he can use braid because he's got the glass tip in it. And he was talking about the same thing, the bigger rods, or the stiffer rods that don't have the glass tip rip a big hole and you lose a lot of fish.
You bet you do.
So that's outstanding.
One thing I wish people, when they, people go to buy a rod, I wish they would think about quality more. When people go to buy a rod, the two things they look at is price and appearance of the rod.
Right.
But quality is, when you buy a rod, to me it's an investment. And I want a rod that'll last me 8, 10, 12, 15 years. Right. If I'm gonna go buy a rod. But these guys, a lot of young guys, a lot of people just go in the store and they look for the best price, the prettiest rod on the rack, and they buy it.
Right.
Well, I think that's a big mistake because a lot of those rods won't last you but 2 or 3 years. They just don't hold up. They're not assembled properly and they don't hold up. And I can say our rods are not that way. They're assembled properly. They hold up. These rods will stay with you 10 to 15 years or longer. Now, some of the old All-Stars that Morgan made years ago, I've got people getting my boat today that I guide that are 25 years old, and they still look reasonably good after 25 years of use. So think about that, everybody out there. When you go to buy a rod, think a little bit about quality along with price and appearance, because quality means a whole lot. That means you're going to keep that rod and you'll have it in 15, 20 years. You'll still be using it.
All right, one last question. It's cold here in South Texas. I'm sure you're freezing to death. I'm pretty cold myself. Had another front come in on Toledo Bend. Got the Texas Team Trail tomorrow. Are they going to catch them?
Somebody is. But I'm going to tell you what, there's going to be a whole lot of guys who are they're going to have a pretty grim face when they come in. I look for a lot of zeros. It's tough out there, I'm telling you. When I had people out last Saturday and we fished for all day, and had like 8 strikes and caught 5 or 6 fish. It's just been tough. I don't know why it's so bad, but Toledo, ever since it was voted the #1 lake 2 years in a row, we just got a lot of people coming to the lake, a lot of people fishing. They were, and they cleaned maybe too many, I don't know. But we had a lot of heavy rain and the lake stayed high 2 years, and now it's down real low. Right. But there's just something going on out there that nobody can explain around the lake here. But fishing is slower than it normally is. But somebody's going to have a 25 or 30 pound bag tomorrow. Oh, this is spring, and we are on Toledo Bend. A lot of big fish out here. They're just hard to find and catch right now.
Right. Well, Mr. Tommy, thanks for making one of my dreams come true.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time. Guys, you can check our rods out at www.mccainfishing.com. Follow us on Facebook at McCain Fishing, Instagram, McCain Fishing as well. If you got any questions, submit it by email through the website. We appreciate your time, and again, we apologize that we couldn't do this video live, but this is Toledo Bend and this is East Texas. Thank you for your time.